Yes, folks, for I am he, the honky chunky funky monkey. And today, let's talk a little bit about journalistic integrity. Because there's so very little of it about. Now, what am I talking about, you ask? Things like this. BBC. On the breakfast show, they had a clip of Boris Johnson, the UK Prime Minister, laying a wreath of poppies at the cenotaph, as is usual every year on Remembrance Day. The trouble was, the actual event, Boris laid the wreath upside down. Big deal, you say. Why would that matter? You're right, why would it matter? It was a simple mistake. But what the BBC showed wasn't what was filmed on the day. They showed a clip from 3 years ago, when Boris wasn't even Prime Minister and he wasn't even laying a wreath of poppies. It was just a wreath. And they say this was a production mistake. How can you take footage from 3 years ago, which would have been archived, you would have had to dig out, and say, oh, we used the wrong clip by mistake? Used the wrong clip by mistake when that footage had to be searched out. Now that says to me, we tried to cover up what Boris actually did. We tried to cover up this simple mistake that the Prime Minister made. Why? Oh, right, that's it. The BBC are so pro-conservative that they have to cover up the mistakes made by conservative ministers. But the BBC is supposed to be an independent party. They're supposed to be an independent company. They're paid for by the taxpayer, no matter who is in government. But they are very one-sided, very biased. Their presenters and that can't be. Any possible bias that is shown on, say, Have I Got News for You? Or any quiz show or comedy show or anything that's not a political show. And even the political shows have to be neutral and give equal representation. But then they pull this crap, covering up a simple mistake that nobody would have cared about. They'd have just said, oh well, that's Boris. He makes mistakes like that. We know what Boris Johnson's like. But the BBC have to cover it up. They're trying to ingratiate themselves. Now, there are rumours that certain people were taken on after David Cameron became Prime Minister in 2010. Certain people joined the BBC in top positions who are very biased and very connected to the former Prime Minister. Yet this is supposed to be an independent company. and they force equal representation on politics into what you cannot say on a quiz show. The Tories suck because blah 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 blah, and leave the other parties out. You have to then explain why the Labour Party sucks or doesn't, the Liberal Democrats, and whatever other party wants to kick off about getting their equal airtime. So if they can enforce that on other shows, why are they covering up on a breakfast programme? It's almost as though they have no integrity anymore. And they wonder why people don't trust the mainstream media. Because of shit like this. BBC aren't the only company to do it, I know. There are plenty of companies, broadcasters across the world that do the same thing, are very one-sided in their political views and how they represent certain parties. That would be fine if that company wasn't paid for by the public, as in the BBC is funded by a licence fee that every UK household with a television has to pay by law. Does that suggest there's a monetary incentive for them to side with the government and cover up the government's mistakes? Decide for yourself on that. And then we have the other side of things, so just entertainment reporting. And we get articles like this from Polygon. And yes, I am running an ad blocker. Fuck you, Polygon. I'm obsessed with the pooping scene in Death Stranding. Now, I'm not going to read this entire article for you. It's on Polygon. It's by some guy called Ben Kuchera. You can go and look it up for yourself if you really want to read it. But basically, he goes on for several paragraphs about a scene in Death Stranding of someone using the toilet. Is this good journalism? I really don't think so. I really. And then you get people like Polygon, like Kotaku, who complain about falling sales and people not viewing their stuff. Guess why, Polygon? It's because you write shit like this. Nah, I hear you say, what does it matter? We hear this all the time. And yes, we do, and that's the problem. We get bullshit articles like Polygon and Kotaku and generated for clicks. And yes, I know that's how the game works. I know that's how people get their money, how they draw people to their website to generate revenue from ads and whatever else. And that's fine if you're going to write an article that's solely to get people to your website. That's fine. I've not got a problem with that. But when you're putting out articles like, oh, this scene about a guy pooping is so whatever, and you write an entire article about that one thing from a game, and then you wonder why people aren't coming to your site. And what does this have to do with integrity, you ask? Well, that's exactly my point. They have no integrity. They're not actually journalists. They're drama makers. They're smut peddlers. They're whatever. Journalism used to be about holding the government accountable, holding public entities accountable for their actions, for actually challenging them to say, is this really necessary? Is this a good way to do things? Is this a good way to run the country? Is this a good way to run your business? Journalists used to call out big public figures to make them answer for what they were doing. Now, they just bash them and attack them for no reason. If Boris Johnson were to sneeze in the direction of Mecca, they would find that out and publish a huge article. That's not something that needs to be challenged. The guy sneezed. What does need to be challenged is their policy on healthcare, their policy on spending. And by challenged, I don't mean to say, you're doing it wrong. You're doing it all wrong. You should be doing this. You shouldn't be cutting money here and there. And what they should be doing is saying, okay, you're spending money there. Is that the right place to spend that money? Show us your workings. Why are you cutting money there? Not demanding that they shouldn't cut it, but asking why it's being cut. Now, it all sounds like, oh, but that's what they do. They challenge them and say, you shouldn't be cutting that money. No. No. They are not challenging at all. They are saying that they know everything and the government doesn't know how to run the country because they don't like the way it's going. If you don't like the way the country is going, you can absolutely say that at the next election. But don't tell the government they're doing wrong when you don't know what they're doing. You don't know why they're doing it. Challenge them by all means. But don't say, you're doing this wrong just because you don't like that party. And don't cover up for them when you do like their party. I mean, for God's sake, the Prime Minister putting a wreath upside down is not the biggest problem in the world. There is no need to cover that up. And to say it was a production mistake, no, it was not a mistake. You did it on purpose. No. You might say, but you're saying that they shouldn't be doing what they are doing. There are ways to do things without creating drama. You should be neutral as a journalist. You should be neutral on all things and question, is this the right thing to do? Not say it's the wrong thing, because you don't know. And you shouldn't know. And you shouldn't decide that this party's doing the wrong thing just because they're on the right side of politics as opposed to the left. And that is my problem. If you cannot be neutral, you cannot have integrity in your reporting. And you end up with things like running 3-year-old footage to cover up a mistake that is not a big deal and is kind of expected of that person anyway. If you're in the entertainment industry and you're writing articles about films, TV shows, games, whatever, focus on what the game actually is, not one silly joke in the game. Not one thing that people might find funny. There is no need to write a whole article about that one scene. You get what I'm saying now? Actually show that you're working to promote the game or not. Actually give a proper opinion as opposed to, there's a pooping scene. Where is your integrity? I tell you where it is. It's in the bloody trash with the reality TV stuff. Because that's all you want is fame. You don't want to bring to light any scandals or whatever because it's the right thing to do. You want to bring them to light to make a name for yourself. And if you want to make a name for yourself, don't be one-sided. Look at things from every angle. Be neutral. And be honest. If you like the game, if you like what a government's doing, if you don't like what a government's doing, by all means, say it. But don't tell me you're a journalist when you are covering up bullshit, you are writing articles about inconsequential things in a game just because you want to shock and offend people and hope that they'll get offended so they'll make you a big name. That's not what journalism is. And if you can't be neutral, if you can't say honestly that you are neutral, that you don't care about somebody's politics, you don't care if somebody's trying to make a joke in a game, that's, if you cannot say that you do not like something because it is wrong, rather you're saying you do not like something because it's this person doing it. That is the lack of integrity I'm talking about.